Welcome to another episode of Underground Reggie. Today we have on the line Mark Heidelberger. All right, Mark, one of the first questions that I want to ask you about is, how did you get started with producing film and producing movies?
Well, I started producing back in about 2000. I moved to L.A. from Santa Barbara, where I went to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I met up with an old buddy who was producing music videos. And he originally asked me if I wanted to direct a video, and I was like, I'm not so sure directing is what I want to do, but I'll tell you what, I'll produce it with you, and then, that'll kind of give me some hands-on experience working on it, and maybe deciding if there's something else I'd also rather do. So as I started producing, music videos with him, it got my juices flowing for producing. I really liked the whole, being able to make the key decisions. I really loved the whole hands-on, being part of the entire process from beginning to end. And the more we started doing music videos, and I sort of self-taught in terms of not just producing, but line producing and production management, I just sort of took on those roles and taught myself how to do them. And there was a natural progression once I just started falling in love with the job of producing, itself. There was a natural progression to other forms of content, like commercials, like feature films, like television, or what have you. It was, content is content is content, so it really didn't matter to me at that point. But I love the idea of taking an idea and bringing it to the screen and being there and overseeing the entire process from beginning to end. If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I don't know if you noticed or not, but I've worked with the music industry as well. It's more so on the talent side and also on the management side. So one of the things that I want to ask you, is there anything that you could share with the audience who doesn't know about the work that goes into working with the record labels, like the companies you work with, like Atlantic and the Sonys and things like that, about the work that you that goes into the music video? Because I don't think a lot of people really knows how much time and how much patience it really takes to get those things done.
I don't think a lot of people do. Well, I'll just start with kind of clarifying a little bit about just what a producer does, more generally, because I think a lot of people aren't even aware of that.
I don't think so either.
No. So many people come to me and they say, so you're the producer, so you're the guy that puts up the money, right? And I'm like, no, not a good one, and not from a good one, I don't. So, raising financing could be one part. I think could be because I don't raise money. I'm fortunate enough to have gotten to a place in my career where I don't need to raise money. People that have raised money hire me. But one aspect could be raising money, but that's just one small part of what a producer does. What I tell people is, look, the producer, my job is like being the conductor of the orchestra. Mm-hmm. So, I might not know how to play the timpani drum. I might not know how to play the cello. I might not know how to play the trombone. But I know how to find the people that can play. I know how to bring them in. I can give them the sheet music, and I can tell them I can have them play together. I know how to make them play. I can bring them all together, and I know when something doesn't quite sound right. I know how to fix it. So, but I tell people, look, you're a trombone player. I brought you in because you're better at playing trombone than I am. And same with all the other musicians. But a good producer can bring all those people together and make them play. So, from a more, job-specific perspective, a producer is the one who decides the project should be made. They're the ones that go out and find the material. They're the ones that go and develop the material. They're the ones that bring on a director, find a director that they feel, because the producer is the creative gatekeeper of the whole project. They're the ones who are tasked from they're the only ones who are there from very beginning to very end, meaning from finding the material all the way through distribution, right?
Right.
And so finding the team that's going to stay true to that vision, from the writers, to the director, to the right cast, to the right distributor, and overseeing that entire process, managing, and of course overseeing the money, making sure it's being spent right, bringing on key creatives, participating in marketing efforts, and publicity efforts. I mean, really, they are the sort of the top level. And they're engaged in managing all of those areas and bringing together the team in all of those areas and making sure there's a sort of a cohesive narrative from beginning to end. They're both the creative and the financial gatekeepers of the project. Regarding your original question, specifically music videos, Yeah, dealing with, I mean, the music business is a tough business. Typically, what my partner and I would do, and this is when I had a company called Treasure Entertainment that I ran for over 10 years, and a big part of our business was music videos. Mm-hmm. We had a stable of directors. So the music video business is a little bit different than feature films. That, unlike features, music video companies have a stable of in-house directors. So we repped, like at any one time, let's say 10 to 12 music video directors. And so we'd have a rep that would talk to the record labels, and the record labels would say, yeah, we've got XYZ band is going to be, we want a video for this band, for this new track they have, and they'd slide us the track, and they'd say, we see you rep, whatever director, G. Thomas, or Marty Thomas, or Lionel Martin, any one of the directors that we had in our stable. And they'd say, well, I want G. Thomas and Lionel Martin to write a treatment for this. And we'd have our directors, they'd listen to the track, they'd write a treatment, we would be involved in that treatment, helping, guide them in terms of what would go to the record label once. We might do some revisions on the treatment, then we would submit it along with a bid. Say, look, here's our treatment, here's how much we think we could do this for. If they really liked our director's treatment, they would award the job to us with that director directing, and then we would have to make that budget number that we gave them, that bid, we'd have to make that number work. And then, from there it's a matter of execution, just like all content, right? So, at the end of the day, it's very much like a feature. Once you start getting into production, you need the same stuff. You need your production insurance, you need your team, you need your camera, you need your locations. One of the big differences is obviously you don't record sound, so you're doing playback, but on set it looks very much the same, and you have to, in many cases, tell a story just like a movie, mm-hmm. except you're telling a story in 4 minutes instead of 100 minutes, right? So, and then the record label shows up, not quite as onerous as the commercial, the ad agency people. Commercials even a little more stressful because you'll have like 5 ad agency people. They're all staring at the monitor, all looking over your shoulder. The record label people, at least the videos I did, were a lot more chill. There was some stressful times, but they were a lot more chill. So you want to keep the management and the record label people happy, obviously, and the best way to do that is just execute on what you promised. Bottom line. Okay, I thank you for
sharing that insight with our audience. With me being originally from Mississippi, I want to ask you a question about working with Malcolm McDowell and working on the film Mississippi Murder. Like, how was that for you?
Well, so that's a great question. My position on Mississippi Murder was actually the post-production producer. So mm-hmm. they had asked me to come down and line produce the movie in Mississippi, and I was already scheduled to do another picture called Ninja Apocalypse at the same exact time. So I'd already signed on to Ninja, and I couldn't line produce Mississippi Murder. So I only was part of that picture in post-production. Once they finished the picture, I got all of the footage, and I started bringing on the post-production team and overseeing the creative process all the way till the end. But I did have actually some interaction with Malcolm because we had to ADR him, which, for people that don't know what that is, for any dialogue that either wasn't recorded properly, or there's a glitch in the dialogue, or we want him to say something else that he didn't actually say on set, we have to record that later in post-production. Right. It's called ADR, Automated Dialogue Replacement, right? But Malcolm, it was in Ojai, and he didn't want to come down to LA to do his ADR, so he says, I'll do the ADR, but I want to do it up here at my friend's studio now. We had to just do it where he wanted to do it. So I had to get my audio guy down here to do what they call like a fiber line, like connect the guy in Ojai with our guy down here, and then remotely record Malcolm. And so I had a whole bunch of lines I needed him to do. There was like a ton of them. And I get a phone call on my cell phone. Hi, Mark, it's Malcolm. I've looked at these lines, and, I'm not getting to do all of them. I'm just not going to do all of them. I can't recreate the performance, just in front of a microphone. It's not. I'll do some of them, but I'm just not going to do all of them. So I just called him back. I said, Malcolm, it's all good, man. Hey, look, you do whatever you feel you want. Like, I'm going to tell Malcolm McDowell what he has to do and what he can't. I mean, at the end of the day, dealing with big name talent is it's part of the job, is learning how to be diplomatic. And so, I said, look, Malcolm, you do the lines that you feel you can do and you feel okay with, and we'll make it work. And he appreciated that. And I understood where he was coming from, because it is tough to recreate a performance just staring at a mic without the other actor there, and you're not in that same moment. You don't have all of those same things going on, the same level of preparation. So you don't want the voice to suddenly feel false. He understands it's going to affect how his performance looks. And to be honest, he did a lot of the lines. I mean, he did a good majority of them, the ones that we needed him to do. He understood which ones were absolutely necessary and which ones were sort of just, we were, just in case, or we were kind of playing around with those lines. Ones that weren't necessary like that, he skipped, but he did the ones we needed to. And you know what? The film came out great, and his lines came out great, and he actually was, he was a pleasure to work with. I just thought that was a funny story, though, when he called my cell phone, he left that message. He's a pro. He knows, he's going to do what he's going to do, and at the end of the day, he knows what we really needed and what we didn't, and we pulled it off. So.
Yeah, man, all this is definitely real fascinating things. One of the next questions that just popped in my head now is, it's more so a personal question, but how do you feel that you've grown as a producer from your early working on films such as like Flint Town, to working on films like Harsh Times with the Christian Bales and the Evil Longorias, up into working on The Basement now?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know what? I've made a lot of mistakes. That's part of it. And that's, so sometimes I mentor other younger producers, like in the Producers Guild, and I tell them that same thing. Go out and make some mistakes. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. too many people are afraid of being perfect, and they're afraid of making mistakes, and they want to be perfect. And I tell them, go make some mistakes, because that's the only way you're going to make them. Just learn from them. Just don't make the same ones again and again and again. So I got to tell you, on every single project I do, even after 18 years of doing this, I still make mistakes, and I still learn. The day you stop learning, man, go do something else. I mean, it's just, one thing I tell people is, like, look, be valuable to people. That's sort of my guiding motto, is as long as I'm providing value, I always want to feel like I'm providing value. And I know I'm going to screw up every now and then, and people working for me are going to screw up. But as long as we don't keep making the same mistakes over and over. So I feel like obviously you learn a lot about the business as you continue to produce, continue to grow just in terms of your knowledge base. So I've worked in both. I've worked in the studio world, I've worked in the indie world, and I've been in the academic world, because I went to UC Santa Barbara for film, and I went to UCLA for my master's in producing. So, I've been part of all three of those worlds. I got a very broad base of knowledge. But at the end of the day, just by doing, that's how you're going to learn. And by failing and by making some mistakes, learning what you did wrong, correcting it, picking yourself back up, and doing it again. So, I feel like, I've grown in so many different ways. It's hard to quantify all of them, but definitely in terms of relating to my relations with people and managing, learning how to properly manage people, how to get the results I want, how to keep costs down while maximizing, what's the production value on screen, making dimes look like dollars on screen, as my partner and I, my old producing partner and I used to say. All of those ways of growing as a producer I could possibly grow, I feel like I have, but there's always room for more. There's always room for more growth.
Okay. Go on to the next question. How did you end up working with the Hallmark Channel?
Actually, I had a client, Oliver Robbins, still a very good friend of mine. You guys would recognize him as the son in the Poltergeist movie, the original one. Yeah. So, but he's a writer-director now, and he had written this script called Derby, and about this kid. It took place in the 70s, and this kid whose parents die, he moves in with to live with his aunt and uncle, and befriends the town recluse, who's like a Vietnam War vet. and him and the town recluse build this soapbox derby racer against his uncle's wishes, against the kid's uncle's wishes, to race in the, because derby racing is like the big thing in this town. I thought it was such a cool, fun, cute script, and I worked on it a little bit with Oliver and got it to the point where we thought it was really tight. And we had attached, what's his name? Daryl Zabara, kid from Spy Kids, and guy from 90210, Luke Perry. We had attached them, and so I took it over to Hallmark Channel, and they took a look at it, and they loved it. And so they said, we want to make this, but we need to make it this year, because I guess they had some sort of tax structure they were trying to take advantage of. And so Luke wasn't available that year, and Daryl, I guess, had started getting too old for the role, so they recast it with John Schneider, who I loved growing up. I mean, Dukes of Hazzard was one of my favorite shows when I was a little kid. And also, what's the other kid? The kid from Kicking and Screaming, Will Ferrell's son. His name's slipping my head right now. But they recast it. They had it within a few months. They had it in production. What I liked about Hallmark, because we had another company that was offering to buy the script, and I said to Oliver, "Look, do you want to get the script made?" Because the other company was offering more money than Hallmark. But I said the difference is Hallmark makes everything they buy, they make it. So would you rather have a bigger upfront payday, but your movie might sit on a shelf and never get made, or would you rather take a little bit less money but see the movie get made? And he said, "I'd rather see the movie get made." I'm like, "Well, I agree. So all right, let's go to Hallmark." And within a few months, they were prepping it for production. Now, I wasn't a line producer, and I wasn't a key producer on that. I was, as a co-exec producer, I kind of just more dealt with the network and dealt with larger, broader issues like story, and they involved us in some marketing. And when they changed the title to "You've Got a Friend," we were involved in things like that. And I would go to the set and see, just kind of make sure that they were staying true to the script Oliver wrote, but they had these Jeff Kloss and Al Dickerson were the two main producers that they brought on to oversee that. It was a fun experience. It definitely was a little bit out of my wheelhouse, because I have never done a TV movie for a major network before, so that was kind of a fun experience.
Yeah, that was actually a good story. That sounded like that was a really good experience. It sounded like they had all their P's and Q's, pretty much everything dotted like to the T. So this is definitely a good thing. Coming to closing, one of the things that I want you to talk about, if you don't mind speaking with us about it, is I want you to speak about the film The Basement that you have coming out with Misha Barton. Then also the new film that you're getting ready to package that's coming out after that as well.
Yeah. You want me to start with The Basement?
Yeah, starting with The Basement would be fine.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular that you were curious about?
I like to just give the insight to the audience about how it is as far as working with films, dealing with more so of the horror themes and like with blood and gore and things like that. Because I think horror films sometimes they can kind of scare people, but also sometimes they have good developed stories as well.
Right. Yeah, well, hopefully if they scare people, that's what we want, right? But in a good way.
Right.
We don't want to scare them away. We want to scare them into seeing the film.
Yeah, scare them into watching it more.
Into watching it, yeah. The Basement was co-written and co-directed by a former management client. I used to manage writers and directors as well, so it was one of my former clients. We had done several movies together prior, so he brought me this script. We already had a financier, who had financed the previous film that we had done together. So, there was already a financier behind it. He came to me with the script, and it was much smarter than the typical horror script. And I mean, it was very much it's more of a psychological horror. Yes, it's got some of the gory parts and the suspenseful, scary parts, but it's definitely more psychological than it is physical. It's not just a guy with an axe running around chasing people, right? It's this sort of psychological warfare between this guy who has been kidnapped and is trapped in his basement, and the guy who's kidnapped him, who's got, definitely is mentally imbalanced and keeps coming down into the basement as different characters. And basically what's happening is the kidnapper is recreating his own capture. And so the guy who's tied up in the basement, the kidnapper is pretending the guy who's tied up is him. And then the kidnapper is playing all the different people that he's going to come into contact with once he gets captured. This kidnapper who's like a serial killer. So he's reenacting his own capture, and he's playing all of these different characters in his life that he would meet. The kidnapper is. So it's definitely this kind of interesting, tug of war going on. And Misha Barton plays the kidnapped guy's wife, who's trying to find him. And Misha, it was interesting because the sales agent we had worked with before gave us a list of actresses who would be good for the role, both that they thought would be good for the role not only creatively but also financially, that would bring value. And Misha was right near the top of the list for this type of film at this budget level. Misha was a great name. So. Mm-hmm. So we made an offer to her, and we didn't hear anything for like a week, nothing. And I had a friend and an associate who I had done some work for in the past. I knew was good friends with Misha, like they would hang out and things. And so I called him and I said, "Hey man, do me a favor. I owe you lunch or whatever. Can you make a call to Misha, ask her to do this picture?" And he's like, "Yeah, let me see." He's from New York. "Yeah, let me see. I can't make any promises, but I'll make a call." And this is on a Saturday. Mm-hmm. Monday afternoon, I get a call from my casting director saying Misha's going to do the movie. So I called my friend back. I said, "Thank you." He's like, "I didn't do nothing." I'm like, "Well, you got her to say," yeah, he wouldn't admit it, but I'm like, "You got her to say yes." So, it's tough getting a name, especially when they know there's a name that's going to really, carry the picture. It's tough to get them to say yes. So I think Misha knew that she was the name. So I think that phone call really put it over the top, and that it got us the name that we needed to feel comfortable selling the picture. And those are all the things the producer needs to think about. It's not just the story, right? But who's going to help sell this thing? Who's right creatively, but who's also right financially? It's balancing a lot of those things.
Right, and how are you going to put the people in the seats?
Right, you got to get butts in seats. That's the bottom line. And after that, it was execution. A lot of it. We have a lot of great practical effects and post-visual effects. We built the basement set, so that took us maybe a week. We shot in it for, I think, 12 days in that basement set. So, and then we had additional locations outside of that. So, moving forward, once we had a cast, and it was pretty straightforward in terms of production. I think it's something that audiences, if they're looking for something smarter horror, I think it's something that they're going to really enjoy. In regards to the next project, Walking on Palmettos, that's my next one that I'm working on with Ed Asner, who I'm sure you know is like a screen legend. Ed's been around for a long time. Younger audiences probably best know him as the voice of the old man in Up, Disney's Up.
Yes.
But, he was, Lou Grant, Mary Tyler Moore. I mean, the guy's been acting for decades. And so myself, him, and the writer, Jim Christel, are actively packaging the film now. We're out to directors. And once we have our director, we're also going to start approaching some cast. And that's something that I'm really hoping to have financed and ready to go by the end of the year. It's a much bigger picture. This is like a $30 million picture. So, it's based on the true life story of a real life marijuana smuggler. So it's kind of topical right now. But this guy Miles Richards, who throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s was one of the biggest smugglers in the world, and he was officially caught and charged with conspiracy to import 250 tons. Wow. This is back in like the 70s of marijuana. Yeah, and the thing about Miles is he was very slick, very smart. He never did a load the same way twice. He always, every time he smuggled a load, it was completely different. He had these huge, elaborate schemes. And so, but the story is not just so much about that as this sort of character arc, this humbling experience that he went through, because he became very cocky and sort of arrogant. And once when he got caught and went to prison, he went to prison for over 10 years, and then sort of went through this humbling experience. And when he lost his family while he was in prison, his brother died, and his mother and his wife left him, and it was this real 180 turnaround. So I think that character, that arc of his character, and the journey he went through as a person, not just all the big fun stuff, but with him traveling around the world and making millions of dollars and doing all these kind of things, but that sort of character journey of him transforming as a person is really what attracted me to the story. So I would compare it to, the story's kind of like a Catch Me If You Can, Goodfellas, Blow, American Gangster, these kind of movies about the sort of the anti-hero, that, this interesting anti-hero that sort of goes through this long, sort of multi-year journey and comes out the end a different person. I mean, that's very much what Walking Out Palmettos is like.
Okay. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that one, and I'm hoping that gets packages and that gets picked up, because that sounds like that's going to be a really fascinating film. Catch Me If You Can is actually one of my favorite films.
I'll tell you.
It sounds really good. So, in closing, is there anything else that you would like to leave our audience with today?
I would just, I'm sure I'll say two things. One, I'll tell people what probably they hear a lot, which is follow your passion. I always think it's good advice. If you love what you do, you're never going to work a day in your life. I think that's true. But the second piece of advice is what I think probably a lot of people don't hear enough, and that's, like, if you want to do movies, just remember that show business is a business. There's a reason we call it show business and not show, right?
Right.
So I think the film schools, I'm going to go out on a limb here, I'm going to say this, I think the film schools have it all wrong. They tell you, go out and just make the movie you want to make. If you're passionate, go make it and then try to sell it. And it's the worst advice you could ever give. You don't think about selling it after you make it. Nobody spends millions and millions of dollars manufacturing and packaging widgets and then figuring out if there's a market for widgets, right? Like, they figure out there's a market, there's a need, they do their research, they determine who the market is, then they start making widgets, and they already know how they're going to sell and who they're going to sell to. That's a good business. But for some reason, we don't do that in the movie business. And it's goofy. We make a movie and then we try to figure out how to sell it. You should be trying to figure out how to sell it. You should have your distributors and your sales agents and your marketing plan in place before you even have a script finished. You should start developing your story based on not just what you want to see, but what audiences want to see. That's the business part. I mean, if you're just looking to make something for fun and you don't care about a return on investment, that's one thing. But being responsible, if you want to work in some business, being a responsible producer and understanding the business aspect is key. So that's the piece of the advice I would give to somebody who's maybe interested in working in the entertainment industry as a producer or otherwise. Is follow your heart, do what you're passionate about, do what you love, but also remember it's a business.
Mark, I thank you for being so insightful, and this is the closing our interview. And once again, I appreciate you, and you have a good day, man.
You too. Thanks, Richard.